Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I am about to give y'all a preview of week number 5. As you can see, the headline pulling the plug, Bobcats playing Oklahoma 255 to nothing. Let's go ahead and look at the top 25 polls. Cardiac arrest, upset-minded Wildcats pull out stunning victory over Ohio State. Yes, Northwestern beat Ohio State. That was a key game, so go back to the previous episode to get an update on that. Number 1 is still LSU. Number 2 is Wisconsin. Number 3 is Arkansas. Now, number 4 is Texas. Number 5 is UCLA. They somehow got a first place vote. Florida is number 6. 7th is USC. 8th is Virginia Tech. 9th is TCU. Somebody gave them a first place vote. Kudos to you. Rutgers, coming off a bye week, is now in the top 10. Florida State's 11th. Michigan, after losing to Penn State, is 12th. And here's what I think. Michigan is undeserving of being ranked 12th. And I'll get to that in a minute. 13th is Ohio State. 14th is Penn State. 15th is Cal. 16th Boise State. 17th Miami. Nebraska's 18th. And Tennessee, suffering the upset of upsets so far this season. And something that people didn't expect to happen, they lose 14-21 to Arkansas State at home. That was crazy right there. And that was shocking to see because I was just simulating it game by game, and that happened. Threw me for a loop. 20th is Hawaii. And yeah, your quarterback now having 10 touchdowns and only throwing one pick after defeating the FCS East 77-3. Normally we put him into the Heisman conversation, but we'll take a look at the Heisman before bottom 10, and I'll tell you why. Georgia dominated Alabama 40-28. That was a key game last week. Go check that. Both those videos out, both the preview of week 4 and the review of week 4. Notre Dame falls 22nd after losing to Michigan State. 23rd is Texas A&M after losing to Miami. And Texas Tech comes into the polls after West Virginia and Oklahoma both lose. And McNary Central's in the top 25 for the first time all year long. And I'm pretty sure they're going to stay there considering I user them. Media says LSU is number 1, so media and coaches agree on that. Wisconsin should be number 2. Arkansas number 3. Number 4 should be UCLA though. And they receive 4 votes while Arkansas only gets 1. Because the media loves UCLA. 5th should be Florida. 6th should be TCU. USC stays at 7th. 8th Virginia Tech. 9th should be Texas. 10th should be Florida State. 11th Rutgers. 12th Ohio State. 13th Penn State. 14th Nebraska. 15th Michigan. 16th Cal. 17th Boise State. 18th Notre Dame. Wow, they took a big old dip. 19th is Tennessee, so they agree on that. 20th should be Miami. 21st should be Hawaii. McNary Central should be 22nd. 23rd should be Kansas State, who coaches poll is 24th. 24th is Texas A&M, so they agree on that. And Northwestern should be 26th. Well, 25th, I mean. In which Northwestern's nowhere even close in the coaches poll. But yeah, before we go and check out the bottom 10, here's the reason why I say that the Hawaii quarterback won't be involved in the Heisman race, because it's all taken up by McNary Central. Because you got a quarterback who's already thrown for 2,000 yards in the year through 4 games. Almost 3,000 yards, actually. Then you got Dwayne Thomas, who's got 51 sacks already. Ty Jones, who's got 40 sacks. and 6 forced fumbles. And Brandon Armstrong, who's got 38 sacks. But yeah, good luck on anybody else trying to get into the Heisman race. And now, for our first team in the bottom 10, we are going to travel out west to the Mountain West. I realize I'm taking the scenic route around. And we will talk about our good friends of Wyoming. They are 0-4, scoring only 7.5 points per game, and having possibly completely lost it in terms of any sense of confidence or momentum. They really need to turn things around, or else these Cowboys won't beat them boys. And yeah, next game is against number 9 TCU, and they got shut out by Ohio. Not Ohio State, Ohio. And your quarterback's only thrown 1 touchdown, and you have thrown 8 interceptions. Yeah, not a season to remember if you're Wyoming. And now we're off to the WAC to talk about our old friend in San Jose State, who lost 23-17 to Utah State the previous week. But the Spartans have been struggling, but I feel like they can at least avoid a winless season with their game this week against the FCS West. As you can see there. Next opponent, the FCS West. Hopefully I'm right on that and they don't prove me wrong. And now we're going off to the Sun Belt to just talk about one team of the Sun Belt, not the entire conference, thanks to the Arkansas State Indians. And we'll focus on Troy. The Trojans of the Sun Belt are atrocious on offense, especially scoring, sitting at 12.7 points per game. They have an opponent this week that scored a fair amount of points in Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. So yeah, that's going to be probably a bloodbath. And if they can't stop them, then it will be a long, long season for Troy. Maybe they need to build a wooden horse for the field and put it up there. And now we're going back over to the Mountain West to talk about another good friend of our list here, BYU. 4-0, well, 0-4 is not what the Cougars expected this season, because remember, they were ranked 43rd in the nation at the beginning of the year. So they had a high standard and a high expectation heading into this season, and not making them. That's why they're still here. They're 0-4, 0-1 in conference play, losing to Air Force 41-31. And they need to gather a few wins and gain something from this season. Otherwise, fans will be waiting for the Utah Jazz to begin playing again and focus on them. Because we're still in September. NBA season hadn't started yet. So, well, in this universe, we're in September. And for team number 5, we're heading to the Pac-10 to talk about Washington. And at the time I'm recording this, they are a college football playoff team. And boy, you can see how the times changed for the Huskies. Here, 0-4, 2023, undefeated, heading to the conference semifinals. And their offense is horrible, being 102nd in the nation. The Huskies do need to rebound right now and salvage something. Otherwise, the Husky fans will turn off their TVs and just wait for the Seahawks on Sundays. Now, for these next two teams, we're sticking in the SEC. As for number 1, we are starting off with Ole Miss. The Rebels are without any cause these past 2 games, as they have lost the last 2 games by a combined 306-10. Before they went up against McNary Central, their points allowed was at 31, and they had scored 45 points. Not bad, but a little average. Now, after their 2-game skid against McNary Central and Florida, you can see that total has definitely grown. Yeah, they were 2-0, looking decent, but conference play has not been kind of them, especially telling the Rebels to get back in line. And with Georgia being right around the corner in Athens, this might look like a lost season for Ole Miss. Just look or to your rivalry game against Mississippi State. That's all I can say at this point. And the next team is Alabama. The Crimson Tide seem to be wearing the proverbial crimson mask and can't stop their bleeding. And by the looks of it, that bleeding may continue due to being up against the number 11 Florida State Seminoles. This isn't exactly how Alabama wanted their season to go, but it's how the Tide rolls, and it ain't rolling their way. Maybe they'll find a way to turn it around, considering they did score 28 points against Georgia Bulldogs, so maybe they can turn something around head into week 5. And now back out west to the WAC for another good friend of the list, Idaho. I mean, they're not the best team in college football by a long shot, but they do at least have a win, which is probably more than what they were expecting. Let's see how they can do the rest of the year. And yeah, they got rolled by Northern Illinois. Next game's against Hawaii. But, see how they do. And for number 9, it is good old North Carolina, who said that 1-3 lost in conference play. And the Tar Heels seem to be stuck in the tar the past few games, they've lost 3 games in a row. And a bad offense at 312 yards per game, which that's not necessarily bad. I mean, it's like mediocre basically, but when it comes to them being ranked inside for team play, it is pretty bad, all things considered. Especially since the next teams are going against. Yeah, 97 is not exactly horrible, but it is bad. And a defense that can't stop a nosebleed, allowing 410.5 yards per game on average. That's not a recipe for success. At this rate, they'll just wait for basketball season to come around and actually have some reason to cheer. And yeah, I'm going to go to the top 25 because of Michigan being number 12. It's like, why am I putting the 12th ranked Wolverines in the bottom 10? They've lost 2 games in a row. They're in a slump with both losses at home. And in my opinion, should be outside the top 25 because of them having those 2 losses. Because, hey, they knocked out West Virginia. West Virginia has 2 losses. So why didn't they do the same thing to Michigan? I mean, they're looking to bounce back with Northwestern, but this is also a Wildcats team that's on a lot of momentum, especially upsetting Ohio State last week. Will Michigan recover? Only one way to find out, and stay tuned. And now it's time for the toughest part of this week was looking for the 5 key games. And I had to put my game here because it's literally the only top 25 matchup of the week. It's the game of the week, the only top 25 matchup of the week, and just kind of proves how bad this week is in trying to find some key games. The Bobcats finally make it into the top 25 after strong performance after strong performance. Their first test as the top 25 team comes in the only top 25 matchup of the week against the Scarlet Knights team that, honestly, I didn't expect that to be up in the top 10. Because conference-wise, them being in the Big East, they went up against Norfolk State, easy win for them. Maybe that was a little bit tougher than Buffalo. This is more going to be a test for Rutgers than McNair Central. But the Bobcats hold the top 5 players in the Heisman race, as y'all just saw. So it's no contest, and McNair Central will leave New Jersey with a win. Maybe they'll come across 3 kids traveling alone for whatever reason. Not going to find anything important, I'm sure. And then game number 2, I mainly put this because of what happened the previous week. And this is North Texas at Arkansas, where Arkansas came into Tennessee last week and upset the Vols on the road, causing them to fall in the rankings, as you saw. And that's basically caused this to be a game of the week to see if it can happen again. And North Texas does have a win, but Arkansas has 3. Again, a Sunbelt team upset an SEC team for the 2nd week in a row. Arkansas may not fall for the same trap that Tennessee fell for, but anything can happen in college football. I'm still saying the Razorbacks will win here over the Eagles, but anything can happen. Key game number 3 is, I would have put this, but seeing how it's an FCS school, I'm not going to do it. Didn't want to worry all out with Michigan for the 3rd straight week. Didn't want to worry all out with Notre Dame 3 times in 4 weeks. So we have the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy battle between Air Force and Navy. The Commander-in-Chief's Trophy begins with a yearly matchup between the Falcons of the United States Air Force and the Midshipmen of the United States Navy. Air Force is having a more balanced attack, with them having a top 50 offense, as you can see, with 406.7 yards per game, and 175.5 of them on the ground, 231.2 of them through the air. Meanwhile, Navy is leading the way with a top 10 rushing attack that's averaging 249.5 yards per game on the ground. But I believe that in the end, the Air Force will come into Annapolis and leave with a victory and knock out Navy in the tournament of military teams. Now, yeah, you can see it says Battle for the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy, like if that team wins, they would get the trophy, which would work in game, but that's not how it really works. It works in like Air Force and Navy, then it's Air Force and Army. Navy wins, well, Air Force wins against Navy and Army. Navy wins. Well, Air Force wins against Navy and Army. Air Force wins. But if Navy beats the Air Force, then the Army-Navy game happens, and that's for the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy. If Army beats both Air Force and Navy, then Army wins the Commander-in-Chief's Trophy. And game number 4, I couldn't really ignore this, even though it's a regional broadcast, for whatever reason. That's next week's game, and I'm not probably going to have to talk about my team, McNairy Central, going against Auburn. But in this unranked, undefeated matchup, up we have the Panthers of Pittsburgh against the Cavs of Virginia. Panthers are looking more productive on offense, having the 5th ranked offense at 490.5 yards per game. The big key here, I think, will be on who will get the last possession. And Virginia's defense is a lot better than Pittsburgh's defense, but I still say Pittsburgh will win and continue to be one of the few remaining undefeated teams in the nation. And now, game number 5. I couldn't leave this out of the key games because of the curse that's going. And now it's at UCLA to visit Oregon State. The curse has traveled out west, maybe in search of a missing weapon of a certain Lord of the Sky. Not that Zeus is missing anything. Not at all. But in the meantime, it might haunt the Bruins as they travel to face the Beavers of Oregon State. Beavers are looking for a bounce-back win after losing to Arizona State, and this could have big Pac-10 implications as well, as UCLA is already 2-0 in conference play, defeating both Stanford in Week 1 and Washington this past week. Oregon State, however, is behind the 8 ball, losing that conference opener last week. And I looked up the roster a little bit for Oregon State, and I believe that behind the back of backup quarterback Tyler Jackson, the Beavers will pull off a crazy upset over the Bruins at home inside Reser Stadium. And as you can kind of see, not many real big games. I mean, Michigan State, Wisconsin could have been one. Could have talked about UAB and Tulsa. Colorado State, TCU. One of my thoughts of a key game was going to be this matchup, in all honesty, between Yale, Monroe, and Troy. You know, it's just this week didn't provide many like interesting matchups for me to talk about, or matchups that involve teams that I've already talked about ad nauseum, and I don't want to wear out talking about those teams. But that's it for week number 5. I will see you all next time.